Alright everyone, we start off today with a reminder, and it's one that liberals really need to be confronted with, because on a normal day, or even during the course of the average month, you neither hear nor see anything of Kamala Harris other than a few tweets. And that's for a reason. Kamala Harris has poor interpersonal skills, comes off as incompetent, comes off as scary, I think, to some people. When you bring up, children being hit by drone strikes and her reaction is a shit-eating grin, like a Cosby face grin, and then a chuckle that sounds like a chihuahua with its testicles in a vice, that might rub some people the wrong way. She's not very competent. She doesn't really have any presidential qualifications. And a vote for Joe Biden is effectively likely to be a vote for Kamala Harris. Liberals need to be confronted with that, and it's actually a pretty good political strategy when you think about it to defeat Joe Biden, because there are plenty of people who, they like him for some reason or another. They think that he's doing a good job, but they still don't like Kamala Harris. Part of it is he comes off as the befuddled old man. That's less sinister to people than someone, again, who literally laughs when talking about genocide and things like that. That tends to frighten people. Joe doesn't really, he confuses them more than anything else. Now, I see through the charade, and I realize that the same deep state handlers would be responsible for especially the foreign policy of a Harris administration, the same as with the Biden stewardship. So on that token, nothing really changes. But when the person is considerably less competent overall, at a time when sociopolitically the nation is becoming fraught with politicization on a level that kind of resembles the antebellum period, wouldn't it be good to have someone in office who's at least capable of making a public appearance coherently sometimes? I know what most of these people would say. They would say, well, it's still better than Trump. Look, mean tweets. All right, I mean, you can believe that if you want. Deep inside, though, most of them, a majority, I would say probably, of people who are inclined to vote for Joe Biden do not like Kamala Harris. But Joe Biden is now in his 80s. He's an old man. And you notice that the age debate has disappeared by and large. Now that Trump has solidified a significant lead, is likely to be the Republican nominee. Biden faces no actual competition at this time. I know you want to AstroTurf RFK Jr. is viable. That's fine. That would be an interesting matchup, but I don't think that's going to happen. Biden, unless he croaks before the general begins, is almost certainly the nominee, and then goes on to potentially win a second term. Maybe it'll even be legitimate this time. The problem is that if you look at Joe Biden's decline, and I mean partially in the physical sense, you can see it in his actions, quite physically, the way he walks, etc., let alone the mental side. Assume for all intents and purposes he doesn't have dementia. He's in a physical decline. He doesn't move. He's not as agile as he was. A sandbag is capable of defeating the President of the United States in a one-on-one matchup. He has physical issues. When you're in your 80s, physical issues do not get better. At best, you can slow down their progression, or you can stagnate them. So I've got arthritis, but if I take real good care of myself, it won't get too much worse until I croak. Biden has had aneurysms. He's had a number of falls. Again, under normal circumstances, when Grandpa falls down a dozen times in the course of a couple of years, the kids start looking at convincing him to use a walker. Hey, because Biden's rich, hey, do you want Helga, the Swedish nurse, as a live-in, or as a personal companion to hold your arm when you're walking down a few stairs or something? You hire Helga, or you hire Rico Suave, that'd probably be down his alley too. And that's what you do. If you're poor, of course, you start talking about signing the papers, which I think is regrettable, although in some cases people have no choice. The sad world that we live in for a lot of people. Joe Biden doesn't have that problem. Why doesn't he do that, by the way? I mean, at the very least, get Helga, the Swedish nurse, to hold your arm because Jill sometimes doesn't want to touch him, I think. And then at least you won't fall up or down the stairs. We got to keep Biden in good health so that Kamala doesn't end up President of the United States. For one purpose would liberals agree with this, by the way. They'll get cognitive dissonance about the likelihood, well, Joe's still spry. Yeah, the average 83-year-old, which is what he would be if he takes office again, is really spry. The average 83-year-old is just as mentally with it as back when they were beating up Corn Pop. That's a lie. that you can believe it if you want, but that's a lie. I mean, if I live to be 80, I don't expect to be able to do most of the things that I like to do. I don't expect to be able to spend long hours in the garden hoeing up turnips or something like that. At least I can shitpost online. As I grow less and less coherent, maybe it'll become funnier and funnier. I mean, just look at Biden's tweets for an example. But that one reason does stick out for why liberals might want to consider the possibility of not attempting to re-elect Joe Biden, which is that Kamala Harris is his running mate. She is going to remain VP. She's his running mate for re-election. There is a strongly measurable chance. There's already one now. I mean, he could croak tomorrow. He's 80 or 81 years old. He's old. For that purpose, by the way, Trump could too. He's 76. It's just that he doesn't have any obvious health issues other than he's somewhat overweight. Joe Biden doesn't have that problem, so it's one up for him. It's too bad he can't walk across a stage without falling down and possibly fracturing something, but liberals need to keep that in mind. Your party may end up minting the first female president of color, by the way, the BIPOC female president. She ticks a lot of grievance boxes. Also, one of the first mentally retarded presidents. Of course, George W. also exists, so she got beaten out on that one. And she won't have been elected. She will have risen to that office because she was the VP. That's a problem, don't you think? And also, she's not competent. Now, if it were first female president or someone competent, where there aren't many competent politicians in general, so I'm drawing a blank, like Carrie Lake or something, I know liberals would disagree on that one, then maybe it wouldn't be a problem. By the way, I would warn Donald Trump, when you choose a running mate, you really need to think long and critically about who that person is, because again, it will be fair game to talk about your age. You'll be 77 going into the election itself, the general election. You'll be almost 78 when you take office if you're elected. You need to have a strong running mate because there is a chance at that age that something gets fucked up. Biden is 4 years older. The question is even more fair with him. It's even more apt. But nobody's asking it. But deep in the back of their minds, keep in mind, if you pull the lever and Joe Biden is on your ballot, or if you enter it into a Dominion voting machine, who knows what vote actually counts there, hint, hint, effectively, in part, you are likely voting for Kamala Harris. She is effectively co-equal to Joe, because there's about a 50-50 chance that at that age, over the course of those 4 years, at some point he's incapacitated. Maybe he doesn't die, but maybe he falls really badly, like down all of the stairs of Air Force One. He's fallen up them a number of times, you see. And he's fucked up. And he ends up bedridden. And he has to resign. And Kamala becomes the president. Or he has some other health issue. He could be temporarily taken out of commission. Do you think that Kamala Harris would do a good job as chief executive? I'm not so sure that she would, and the irony is that most Democrats agree with that assessment. They're either unsure or they're feeling kind of negative about the proposition. Therefore, it is ignored because otherwise the Joe Biden candidacy might have some problems, actually. There could be that somebody are like, well, Orange Man bad, but I'm not so taken in by this Kamala person. Once the ads start circulating, and they should already be memed up right now, other people can handle this. Take the footage of her laughing at terrible things and, constantly going off and sometimes sparring angrily with reporters for literally no reason at all. That happened a couple of times as well. Get those together into a compilation. Drill it into the liberals' heads, Okay, I know you want the first female president. Don't you want them elected instead of rising to that office because an old white dude croaked? That will look so progressive, by the way, in the history books for your party. That's about all. Peace out.